All right, welcome to the SAP ERP Materials Management training for new users. Now, this training is important and necessary for all those who are new to the SAP ERP Materials Management and you want to take the Materials Management training. It's a free training here. Take your time, go through the course, and I can guarantee you get value for it. Let me quickly introduce the outline. Now, first of all, look at the what is ERP for those who have not you don't know what ERP is. Now, for all my courses, most of my courses for new users, I always like to start from the fundamentals. So you have the materials management overview, focus on the procure to pay business process, and then the SAP ERP document structure. We'll also look at the digital transformation with SAP ERP, SAP ERP function and technical component, SAP ERP purchasing business process, SAP ERP inventory process, the logistics invoice verification process. The session 2 is practicals, the SAP ERP navigation. We'll talk about SAP ERP system landscape, the system-wide concept, and then we'll create procurement documents and see how to create such documents. Okay. Now, this training is for those who want to stay ahead of their colleagues. All right, it's for professionals, those who are proactive. Professionals are proactive because the work landscape currently is changing very fast. Okay, organizations are adopting the use of ERP, and it therefore means that you need to, as a professional, you need to digitalize your skill. You need to align your skill with the digital realities. Okay, otherwise, very soon you will be very unattractive in the labor or in the work space or the work market. Okay, so let's look at what ERP is. ERP means enterprise resource planning. It is a software system that is used by organizations to automate. That means to stop using manual process and use software to integrate and optimize their business processes. Now, this implies that the critical business processes of these organizations run on their ERP system. Now, you can look at the diagram there. You see the different interconnection of these business processes. All processes from sales, finance, purchasing, inventory, warehouse, logistics, manufacturing, plant maintenance, quality management, HR processes are all automated, integrated, and optimized. Now, one of the things that you will find about the ERP is that it is only ERP that integrates all business processes. Okay, for automation, we have standalone systems in finance and inventory that automate processes and optimize them. So, for that particular uh, 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 process, it is automated, right? And then it is also optimized. But the ERP, the power and the advantage of the ERP is that it integrates all the business processes, and it's amazing what the ERP provides. And that is why the ERP would be here for as long as man lives on earth. Okay, what we continue to see is the further optimization of processes using other things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, and all that. But the ERP, the concept of the ERP is the integration, and that would be here for a very, very long time. So investing in this skill gives you you are doing a very good investment. Now, SAP ERP Materials Management. Um, we're going to focus on the SAP ERP Procure-To-Pay business process, or P2P. The SAP ERP Materials Management module is the backbone of the supply chain in organizations. It is used to ensure the availability of material items at the right time and, of course, the right price. SAP ERP Materials Management comprises of the following business processes like purchasing, inventory management, logistics invoice verification, physical inventory, material requirement planning, or MRP. Okay, so these are some of the sub modules within the materials management. Materials management is for managing your materials. Okay, which means you need to purchase the materials. You need to ensure that materials are available by purchasing materials. So purchasing is a major part of the materials management. Okay, so let's look at the procure to pay business process, which is the standard process. We have other processes. We have the stock transfer business process. We have subcontracting. We have a vendor consignment process. These are special processes, a special type of procurement. All right, but let's look at the standard procurement, which is the procure to pay business process. Now, on the diagram here, you see it is usually triggered. The procurement process is usually triggered with the determination of requirements. The determination of requirements. All right, so when there is a need to purchase something, okay, so that becomes a requirement, and it is handled by a document called the purchase requisition document. All right, so at that stage is where you use the purchase requisition document. Okay, then you once the requirement has been determined, then the next stage is the determination of the source of supply. Okay, now the purchasing department is going to now determine how do we get a source of supply, who would supply these requirements. All right, who will fulfill the requirement, and that is determined at that stage. Okay, is it going to come from a vendor, from an existing vendor, maybe an existing contract? Is it going to come from us referencing an existing purchase order? Is it going to be us sending bids or requests, or requests for quotations? So all these are things that are considered to determine the source of supply. And if you are using request for quotation, then you probably would need to do vendor selection. Now, once you have a source of supply, the next thing is to raise a purchase order. Okay, we'll talk more on the purchase order later on in this course. Then we will talk about the purchase order being when you raise the purchase order, and you to the vendor, you send it to the vendor or the supplier. You also need to monitor it. Now, when the vendor supplies, is going to deliver it to your warehouse, okay, or your inventory, and those who are responsible for inventory will have to take it and add it into the inventory based on the stock type. All right, now in inventory, you do goods receipt to receive it into your inventory. Okay, goods receipt is part of the goods movement. All right, so within when you've done that goods receipt, the vendor again will bring their invoice for payment, and then in that case you need to verify the invoice, and then once you have verified the invoice and it is fine, then you post it to account payable for payment. Right, for payment. Okay, so that is the procure to pay business process. Now, when we're talking about this process, you use documents. For instance, the purchase requisition document. Okay, so you use documents to run these processes. Okay. Now, let's look at the document structure. First is the document levels. The SAP ERP document structure has two major levels: the header level, the item level. But it's only the SAP ERP sales and distribution document that has what? It has three levels. Other documents have two levels. Note that whatever you apply at the header of a document applies to the whole document items. Let me give a scenario. Okay, now if you apply, like you want to purchase, I always like using the purchase of laptops. Okay, so we want to have a training of our staff, and so we need to purchase 50 pieces of laptops. Right, so for that training, now we'll need just one printer, we'll need just one projector for the training. Now the vendor decides to give us 10% discount because we are buying 50 pieces of laptops. All right, now that discount, you don't apply it at the header. If you apply it at the header, it will impact on the projector. It will impact on the printer. All right, so that kind of scenario, you apply it to the item level of that item, which is the laptop. Okay, so but now the vendor will deliver the whole items and will deliver for $200, or say 190 euros, whatever the case may be. Okay, now this is going to, it should impact all the items, because the whole items are required, right, to be delivered. So since the delivery is for the whole items, you apply it at the header level. All right, so that's how it works. Then you have the document types. The document type, each SAP ERP transaction requires a document to execute business process transactions. The document type to be used will determine the type of document transaction that can be executed. The document type also determines the document number assignment and the number range. Then it also determines the allowed item category. Okay, so you have two types of number assignment. You have the external number assignment, you have the internal number assignment. Now the external number assignment, what does it mean? It means that the user will have to manually impute the numbers, or impute whatever, whether alphanumeric number or just numbers or alphabets. And then you have the internal number assignment, which is when the system, this is when the system generates the number internally. Okay, and then we have the item category. The item category classifies the line item and controls how the system will process the line item. For example, item category U is for stock transfer. So if you select U for an item, the system automatically transact it as a stock transfer. All right, D is for services, and the system will process them exactly that way. All right, the digital transformation with SAP ERP. What is digital transformation, DT? Digital transformation is the integration of innovative digital technologies into all areas of a business to improve the customer experience and core operations. It's about finding new ways to generate value and promote overall business efficiency, to build cognitive enterprise, it's important to upgrade your business landscape. SAP ERP software is used by many organizations as the foundation to advance their digital progression. The ERP is now becoming the major work ecosystem because it integrates all your business processes. So it means that, okay, whatever tasks you want to carry within your organization, you will be using the SAP ERP system to carry out most of the tasks. Okay, so and that shows that if you don't have this kind of skill, very soon you'll not be able to fit in. Now there are three streams where the SAP ERP accelerates digital transformation, DT. One is the area of the material flow, information flow, and financial flow. All right, so the material flow is that you have to you're purchasing materials, you're bringing materials into inventory, you're capturing all the activities around the material. Then you have the information, of course. When you raise a vendor sends you a, a quotation, right, or you're sending them a quotation, SAP is able to capture the right data that is transferred and used for transaction. Then you have the financial flow. As you do these transactions, there are financial implications. All right, and SAP captures these financial implications or impact as you run your transactions. So you see that the SAP ERP is very vital to business successes today. All right, and while learning the SAP ERP business processes, the digital shift and alignment, career requirement. Now, this is about just a brief about your career, because the reason why you want to take training is because of your career. Okay, so career requirements in organizations have changed because of the accelerated digital alignment caused by the COVID-19. As in, it's accelerated it. It has been there, but it's accelerated it. More and more organizations now require ERP to power their business from any location, so people can now work remotely. Interestingly, but not surprisingly, businesses are re-evaluating their work processes in light of this crisis. The urgent need to work digitally is causing them to prioritize digital transformation. This implies that if by now you have not aligned your career with a digital skill, especially ERP, you will soon be unattractive in the work marketplace. I said this earlier on, right? With the current disruption caused by the COVID-19 in the workplace, it has become pertinent for any smart professional to skill up to align with the current digital reality. All right. Now, the fact is that successful people, proactive professionals, are proactive, right? So you want to get yourself prepared for change, so that when change comes, you are at advantage. Because if you're not prepared when change comes, then like we've had several cases of people who they wanted to do the SAP ERP training, but they were procrastinating, and one day they called in and they said that they've lost their job, especially during the COVID. They lost their job. Okay, so successful people don't do things when it is convenient. That's why they are successful. If it was always convenient to be successful, everybody would have been successful. Successful people are those who do things when it is not even convenient. Right? So step up your game and be at the top. Currently, the demand for ERP solution has increased because of the following reasons: work from home, need for increased business process visibility, cut down on expenditure, innovation. And these are the benefits of acquiring the skill. You are exposed to the global best practice on enterprise business processes. You become compliant with the current trend in required skill set for today's work environment. Is a strategy to become more relevant in your organization if they currently use ERP solution. You become an indispensable asset to your organization if they currently use SAP ERP. This skill will give you an edge in the labor marketplace and during interviews. This is testimonies of many people that we have trained, right? They because they go to for interviews, and the organization use SAP ERP. Most of the people applying don't know how to use SAP ERP, and so they easily just walk in and grab that job. It gives you the leverage to negotiate for a good salary. SAP's solution consultant skill is a proof against job insecurity, because you can even work as a solution consultant. If you take that training, you can work as an independent consultant. All right, and they are actually one of the highest paid professionals around the world. Okay, so we provide trainings for super users. We provide training for you want to be a consultant, or you want to do the certification exam. We provide such trainings, and our trainings are online, instructor led. I mean, very interactive, life. You have a life instructor, a consultant. Okay, and it's hands on. We give you free SAP software, access to the SAP software. We give it to you, we give you free. All right, so that you're able to have very effective training and practice. And apart from that, you get the recorded videos. That's for the online instructor led training. We also have the classroom training that is available for those that want to take the classroom training. So we're always there for you whenever you want to take your SAP training. We provide it worldwide. So you have the functional and the technical areas. You have the technical area, which is IT. Okay, there you have the business. The basis, SAP basis. These are system administrators, database administrators. Then you have the ABAP programmers. Then on the other side, you have the functional. Like this class is a functional class. All right, where you talk about the business processes. You have the financial accounting for FI. CO is for control. HCM is human capital management or HR. You have materials management, SD for sales and distribution. You have quality management. You have production planning, and so on. All right, so these are the functional areas, the business areas. It's not IT. All right, now let's look at the SAP ERP purchasing business process. How does it flow? Okay, now you can see here we have MRP, production planning PP, plant maintenance is PM. All right, now these are used to generate automatically generate a purchase requisition. From production planning, automatic purchase requisition can be generated. From plant maintenance, the same thing, or MRP can generate. Also, sales order requirement, operations requirement, project requirement can be a point of determination of source of supply. Determination of requirements. Okay, and then the document that is used for this is the purchase requisition. So this is the purchase requisition. This is the document types that we're talking about. Okay, and here you have to, if I input numbers here, that's external number assignment, but the system have to generate a number for me. We're gonna create a document so that you see what I'm talking about. Later on, we'll create a document. Okay, so this is a purchase requisition, for instance. So this is where the determination of requirements is carried out, right? Okay, so now when that has been determined, then the determination of the source of supply, like as I said earlier on. Now, the determination of the source of supply, the purchasing department begins to consider if they have a scheduling agreement that is already running for such requirement, purchasing requirement. Now, do we have a contract? Okay, an existing contract. Okay, so if you have that, then that can become the source of supply. Otherwise, you can raise a request for quotation and send to vendors. Okay, and then if you eventually get your quotations, then you can do a vendor selection. The system can help you do automatic price comparison in the SAP system if that is what you want to use for selecting your vendor. Then you have the purchase order. So once you have determined the source of supply, then the next thing is to raise a purchase order. All right, you raise a purchase order. Now, the purchase order is a legal document that authorizes the vendor or the supplier to supply. Okay, so once you get to that point, you raise a purchase order. Now, when you raise a purchase order, then you authorize the vendor to supply. Okay, so the vendor would now supply, and then it will be received in inventory. Now, while that is happening, you can monitor the purchase order to see what is happening, whether the vendor has supplied, what did the vendor supply, and things like that. All right, so that is the purchasing process within the SAP ERP Materials Management. Okay, so now once you have you have authorized the vendor, then the next thing is that the vendor will deliver. When the vendor delivers, is going to deliver into your inventory. All right, so depending on the kind of item anyway. So let's look at inventory management process. Inventory management process is used to manage the inventory for the goods, inventory for the goods that are delivered, okay, or your general inventory anyway. It is based on several key processes like goods receipt, goods issue. Goods receipt is to receive into your inventory. Goods issue is to send out. Issue to maybe issue to production, issue to sales, customer, issue to operations for consumption and things like that. Okay, and then you have the transfer posting. Transfer posting is that you are transferring the items from one stock type to another stock type. All right, and then you have the stock transfer. You have physical inventory also as part of inventory management. All right, so you can see the chart here. And so you see from purchase order, you can also receive from return deliveries. You can receive from production, right? So, but then when you are receiving, it's called goods receipt. Okay, now if you are receiving and maybe it has to go to quality inspection, all right, then after the quality inspection you need to move it to what they call unrestricted use stock type. Now once you move it to that unrestricted, for you to move it to that unrestricted use stock type, you use a transaction called transfer posting. All right, transfer posting is used to move stock from one stock type to another stock type, or from one material type to another material type. All right, either ways, when it is time to issue, when it's time to, when you have your stock, you need to issue it out, either for production or for maintenance, or you want to issue for sales or for use, internal use, which is consumption. Okay, so whatever, for you can even issue for sampling. So many scenarios about issue. You can issue from a reservation. You can actually have a reservation and issue from, like for instance, production planning Plant maintenance, automatic production planning automatically creates a reservation. Okay, so once you've done all this, there are still some other transactions, but this is basically for the procure to pay. It's actually the goods received that is required for the procure to pay business process. Now, once that is done, then the vendor can bring their invoice, and then you would have to do the invoice process. Okay, let me just edit this. It's actually invoice, not billing. Okay, so invoice verification business process. Now, the invoice verification process, logistics invoice verification is part of the materials management at the end of the logistics chain comprising purchasing, inventory management, and invoice verification. Logistics invoice verification checks incoming invoices for accuracy with regards to the content, the price, and accounting. The main task of logistics invoice verification is to complete the procedure of materials procurement by posting the vendor invoice and to pass on information concerning the invoice to financial accounting and subsequent applications. Logistics invoice verification can also process invoices that do not originate in materials procurement. That means we can do it directly. Okay, so this is the flow. So you have invoice verification. Now, when you do your invoice verification, what happens is that the invoice, the amount or the value of the vendor's invoice is entered into your invoice verification document, and then you call up the purchase order. All right, so that's why you see this here. So you can call up the purchase order if you are doing the purchase order based invoice verification. All right, to match. So the system will now use the value of the purchase order to match the value of the invoice from the vendor that you entered into the invoice verification document. All right, so once it matches, then it would there will be no variation, and so you can post that invoice. You can also have a goods received based invoice verification. When does that apply? Now, in a situation where a vendor, you have agreed with the vendor and you allow partial delivery in your policy, okay, and then the vendor has the agreement or arrangement with your organization that for every delivery they want payment. All right, so they do partial deliveries, and for every partial delivery they want payment. In that case, you will need to activate the goods received based invoice verification, and that is what you will use for the transaction. All right, and then of course, when everything is fine, then you post the invoice to the account payable. All right, in accounting, and accounting will take it up for there to run the payment. Okay, so this is second session, which is navigation. So we're going to be looking at some practical uh, activities or tasks. But first of all, let me just talk about the SAP ECC and SAP S4HANA. Now, the SAP ECC is the system that SAP, the system or technology that SAP has been using. That's the ERP before now. I think about 80% of SAP, as at now, about 80% of SAP customers still run on SAP ECC. But S4HANA is the new version, all right, of their ERP. ECC can run on HANA database and other database, as in third-party database like Oracle. But S4HANA was designed majorly to to adopt, and optimize the power of the HANA machine. All right, the HANA machine is an in-memory system. Okay, so the S4 HANA is a very powerful solution, but then is the future. Many organizations are gradually migrating to the S4 HANA environment. But if I want to say this, if you know how to use the ECC, you probably might not need training or much training for the S4 HANA, because they have more of similarities than differences. Okay. Now the SAP ERP system landscape, how does it look like? You have the development system, you have the quality assurance system, you have the production system. The development system, now you need to take note of this. The development system is used for customizing the business processes. It is the consultants that usually have access to it, and once it has been done, the customization is moved to the quality assurance system where it is tested. So quality assurance system is used for testing. You do your unit testing, you do your integration testing, you do your user acceptance testing on the quality assurance system. Also, the quality assurance system is used for training. Okay, that's what you use for training. Then once everything is fine, you have tested it and they are fine, it is now transported to the production system. The production system is where you carry out your real life transactions, so it's subject to audit. You don't do testings there. Okay, how does that look like? Let me show you how it looks like. Now these are different systems. These are different systems. So you see Zocode development system, Zocode production system, Zocode quality assurance system. So all of them are systems that you can log on to. All right, but they are set up differently based on how the purpose of the system. So that's what I mean by that, by the system landscape. Okay, sometimes you also have sandbox. Now the SAP ERP system-wide concept. Now remember that your SAP system is representing your enterprise, your physical enterprise. So it means that all the physical structuring of your enterprise will be represented in the SAP system. For instance, if you have different company branches, all right, it will be represented. If you have different companies across different countries, they will be represented. Okay, you have warehouse, you have manufacturing plants and things like that, all will be represented in the system. Okay, and of course also you have administrative structure. Okay, so it is called organizational structure or enterprise structure. They are made up of several organizational levels like client, company code, plant for logistics, and then you have like for materials management, you have purchasing organization, which is unique to materials management. You also have purchasing group, you have storage location. All right, so these are the different organizational levels within the materials management organizational structure or enterprise structure. All right, the enterprise structure is usually customized by consultants. It's a very sensitive area, but it's straight to the point, so it's easily understood. Then you have the master records. So this gives you this whole system-wide concept gives you an overview of the SAP system. So if you understand these different areas, then you will know how to use the SAP system effectively. The master records are records that are stored, data that are stored in the SAP system for a long period of time. All right, data for different entities like vendors. All right, you want to have master record for vendors, where you can manage vendor data. For instance, payment terms, vendors address, vendors the currency you are transacting with the vendor, and so many other activities. It also has functional control or control functionalities. The master records have control functionalities, and so by that, super users can implement some certain business rules. Right. Then you have the transactions. Now, the transactions are usually handled by the end users. The day-to-day transaction, create PO, change purchase requisition, do approvals, and things like that. These are transactions. Okay. Now we have trainings at different levels. We have the end user level training. We have the super user level training. We have the consultant or certification level training. So any of the trainings that you want to do further, uh, most times the super user training, or the consultant training, have edge over, um, because you know more, and it can give you more opportunities. Okay, so let's look at logging onto the SAP system. You have the SAP GUI and SAP Log On. You can access SAP systems using front end programs with a variety of designs. Almost all SAP components are, however, accessible using a general front end program, the SAP Graphical User Interface, all right, which is the GUI. The several variants of the SAP GUI are available. These variants are all graphically equivalent but adapted for use in different environments. Now, I need you to take note of these icons. These are desktop icons. Now, this is the old one. This is the new design. So, peradventure, you go for an interview and you see either of them. That's why I have to just put the two here, so you know that that's the SAP icon to launch the SAP log on pad. All right. So this is the log on. The SAP GUI program connects the front end computer with a specific SAP system. To start the SAP GUI, SAP provides another program called the SAP log on. I just showed you my own log on. And of course, after the log on, when you click, you see all these are highlighted. So when you click, it would now take you to the SAP GUI environment. All right. So this is for ECC. The client, you put the client, your username and password. The logon default. Sorry. The logon default language. Once you input all your parameters, you click on the enter icon to proceed. Okay. Let me just show you again. So assuming that I click on the icon, then it launches my logon. Now you see that this logon, you have two. I showed you the old one and the new one. So this is the new one, but they all are the same thing, the same functions. The logon can be here. The logon can even be here. Okay, so you select the particular system you want to log on to. Now this is how the S4HANA GUI interface looks like. Okay, this is the S4HANA. So setting, like you see, there's no icon. You just a text that you can click exit and new password and all that. So, but it's the same function. Now let's look at the ECC. Now this is the ECC. All right, now this is log off, whereas for the S4HANA is exit. You see, so these are just some of the difference, but of course there are also some functional differences. Okay, we're gonna use the ECC. So I'm gonna impute my username and then my password. Now you observe that when typing your password, the asterisk marks are still there. Now that is how it will be. So just type your password. It would it's just a marks that covers for security reasons, and you press enter, or you click enter, or you press enter on your keyboard. All right, now take note of this. When you log into the SAP system, the first place you log on to is the SAP Easy Access. That's the first place you log on to. This can be an interview question. All right, the first place you log on to is the SAP Easy Access. All right, now before we go on to carry out the task, let me show you, some navigation tips. Now I have a video on the SAP new user. You can go to that SAP new user, but I think most of the things I've also discussed them here. Okay, so this is the menu bar. It changes as you run your transactions. This is the standard toolbar. This is to log off, but when you are in a transaction, it becomes exit. All right, so but if you want to log off the SAP system, this is what you use to log off. You click on it and it says then you say yes if you want to log off, but I don't want to log off, so I'll say no. I click no. Now this is the back icon to go back. This is to cancel. This is to save. Now this is to enter or continue. Now here is the command field where you input your transaction codes. Transaction codes are like shortcuts. Okay. Now, like for instance, so these are transaction codes. ME51N is a transaction code to create purchase requisition. All right. So if I put it here, ME51, it will take me to the same place that this is taking me to now, which is the create purchase requisition. Okay, so same thing. If I ME51N, if I don't want to go through the stress of drilling through this, so I click enter or press enter on your keyboard, and then it will still take you to that same transaction. Okay, so this is the back key, back icon rather. Okay, now these are, we have 3 operational work areas. These are work areas. Okay, we have logistics, accounting, and human resources. These are the 3 operational work areas. The rest are for administration. Okay, and out of them, logistics is the biggest or the largest work area. Then when you open the work area, you have modules. Right, so these are different modules under logistics area, and under the module we have sub modules. Okay, and so let's look at the purchasing. Now in your transactions you have 3 major transactions, which is to create, to change, and to display. Okay, you create when it does not exist. You change when it exists and you want to modify or update. Alright, so you change what has been created. But when you want to create, you don't search because it's not in the system. Then display, you display read only what you have created or what you have changed. Okay, so these are the three basic transactions that you have in almost all the documents or processes. All right, now the next one here is the title bar, and it's very important because it shows you from time to time the transaction you are doing. Okay, like when I say 2-1 and you see here now, you can know from the title bar that this is to create a purchase order. When you are doing display, you will know that it's a display or is a change. Okay, so whatever you're doing, so it's very, very important for navigation. Then the next one is the application toolbar, where it gives shortcuts of functions within that application. They all change based on the application you're dealing with. All right. Then the last one is the status bar. These are the bottom here. All right, that gives you the messages. All right, the status of your transaction. If for instance, let me see here, if so sometimes you will have your status show you red. When it shows you a red, when it shows you a message with a red icon, it means it's an error. You have to correct that thing, all right, before the system can proceed. Then if it shows you yellow, it means a caution. It means you can still proceed, but for you to proceed, you have to either click enter again, or you press enter key on your keyboard. All right, and then it will now continue to process that transaction. It's usually for caution. Then you have the green icon message, that is usually for information. Okay, so then some of the things again that you might want to know is types of field. Okay, some types of field. Okay, I want the user profile to open. Okay, so let's just go and look at the types of field. Now this is like the user profile. Now you can see this is a field, and this field does not take input. Sorry, is a plain field. These are plain fields, so we just have to type into it, right? Now, but it's different from this one. This one is a list. All right, so when you see icons like this at the side, you know that is a list. Okay, now look at another type, this icon. This also shows that is you see, so it means that you can search. Okay, so those are some of the fields that you can use, or that you would you see. when you are doing your transactions. Okay, so let's create, let's take a tax. Let's create a purchase requisition. Remember I told you that the purchase requisition is actually an internal document of the organization, that is used to express their purchasing requirements. Okay, so you go to materials management, purchasing, and then you have purchase requisition. Double click on create. Now sometimes you might not see this transaction code. Now in case you don't see the transaction code, right, let me show you. So in case you don't see the transaction code, you go to extra settings, and then you select technical, display technical names. So once you select it, it will display the transaction code. For new user accounts, you probably will not see that. Now you see, as I cancelled it, my status bar shows that action has been cancelled. So it's green icon, right? So I told you green icon is for information. Okay, so when you open your purchase requisition document, we can close this place. All right, now here are the document types. So you have different document types here. If I want to do a stock transfer requisition, I will need to change the document type for stock transfer. All right, if I want to do services, I'll need to change the document type, usually framework, or this can go. Okay, so these are different document types. So this is standard purchase requisition document. Okay, and this is where you have your item category. All right, so here you see that this one, look at the item categories that are available. So I can run any of these transactions using this document type. If I change the document type to maybe framework order, for instance, you see that the item categories that are allowed here will be different. You see, so this allows only limit and services. Okay, so once you select services, for instance, then it's going to treat that line item as a service. Okay, so this is how item categories work. Okay, I'll show you again. Then when you input, I say when you input numbers manually here, it is called external number assignment. So the first thing, you go select your material. Okay, you go search for a material. Now you can use this place to filter your material by selecting different filter, or filter parameters or fields. If I want to use material type, I just use this, and then it's going to change it and give me material type. Okay, so you just use the one that is very, sorry. So let me search for a material. So I can use this way to search for a material. I want to search for battery. I want to search for email battery. So I'm going to use IMHEN. So this is a wildcard search. Now, so what that means is that anything that has email before or after, give it to me. So I search. So you see, it gives it to me. Email battery. Select. You can double click or you copy. So let's say 200 pieces. I'll indicate my plant. Indicate my storage location. Indicate my purchasing group. Who is the requisitioner? Patrick, for instance. It's good to always indicate your tracking number. So let's say okay, so let me press enter to check your entries if they're fine. Okay, I need to delete that line. Okay, so you can see how that it came up with red. So that is error. Now you have to fix that. Okay. So now you can see again. You see the yellow icon. So this yellow icon indicates that this is a caution. All right. So I can still go ahead, even though you have this yellow icon, by pressing, clicking on enter to continue. But there's an a red icon which is for error. All right. Now, what is the error? It has to be fixed. Okay. So the error is that no commitment item has been is entered. This is a commitment item. By default, you can just use 1111. Okay. Depending on the most times that would have been done is from accounting. Okay, so now it's fine. We just have only the warning sign. We can post with this. We can save it with this. Okay, so this is the item. Now this is the these are the different levels. So you have the header, you have the item and the header. Okay, now the item, you have the item overview, and you have the item details. Okay, so the overview of the item will show all the items. You can have several items. Okay, while the details will give you the details per item. Okay, so like in this case we have just one item, and so these are the details. The valuation is where you have the price, source of supply if there is any. You can have that. You can actually suggest a source of supply and things like that. All right, so let's go ahead, and we're not using external numbering now, we are using internal. So I'll save, and once I save, the system will generate an internal number. So by that it would have that is what we call the internal number assignment. Wow, so look at it, purchase requisition number created. All right, so that is how you create your purchase requisition, and this can now be referenced into either the request for quotation or the purchase order. This you can do subsequent training. We provide trainings for the global audience. We provide training for those in the United States of America, in India, in Asia, in South America, in Canada, in Europe, across Africa. So we have our online instructor-led trainings. It's very interactive and it's live. You have recorded video, and we give you free access to the SAP software. All right, so that you can have effective practice. Okay, and also we provide classroom trainings. All right, thank you. Thank you for taking time, and see you at the top.